Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Friday, October 17th, and this week, Hong Kong regulates Uber. The future is Waymo, and drivers can earn extra cash. Legal Rideshare breaks it down. And from Legal Rideshare, I'm joined by the co-founder and lead attorney, Bryant Greening. Brian, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Jared. Great to be back.
Great to be back indeed. Already mid-October, almost Halloween, which is insane. But
I
time
know I
is
got an invite to a Christmas party the other day.
what? That is insane. Come on now.
I, I thought so, but the party's 6 weeks away, so it's not
That's
as crazy as it sounds.
that is on. That's I'm one of those people that gets offended when you start pushing past Thanksgiving, since my birthday is right around Thanksgiving. So I feel like, how dare you? And not even Halloween yet.
I know, but hey,
Crazy.
schedules fill up, and I'm a busy man, so
That's
in
right.
hindsight, I appreciate the invite, but I could not. But I was like, what the heck is going on here? Why am I getting this? But
That's
you know,
crazy. Unbe-
needless to say, the year is
Unbelievable. Unreal. Well, on that note, we do have some pretty interesting stories that are maybe not as crazy as the Christmas early, but kind of actually the first story is the reverse of that, talking about taking quite a long time, but they did it, and this is in Hong Kong. After a decade, Hong Kong has finally regulated Uber, and this is from Bloomberg, and they reported, quote, under new rules to take in effect next year, ride-hailing platforms, vehicles, and drivers will need to obtain relevant licenses and permits, according to a government statement. The regulation also strengthens penalties for the illegal carriage of paying customers. They say the bill, quote, will address the long-standing controversies surrounding such services and provide the public with more travel options that are safer and lawful. Under the new rules, drivers will need to be at least 21 years old and have no serious traffic convictions within the past 5 years. Now, Uber does say it welcomes the government's move to formally regulate ride sharing in Hong Kong. It says the bill will help integrate ride sharing into the city's transport system and ensure riders and drivers that they benefit from the rules. So this is interesting, Brian. I'd love to hear your take on this. First time I've ever heard two things come out of this. One, entire city or area, Hong Kong, is saying, "Look, we're regulating," and Uber's saying, "Yes, please, and thank you." What's happening here?
This may be the definition of legal ride sharing. So
I mean, right? Good one. That's good.
yeah. No, so I think that obviously it's time for some regulation here. And it had been just a crazy, like wild scenario out there with no regulation, no rules. Everybody was just kind of going in this chaos. And ultimately, I think the city decided that it wasn't safe. Like it needed we need to have regulation when it comes to technology coming in, changing transportation. The civilians need to understand what the rules are. The drivers need to understand what the rules are. The companies need to have some guardrails up. It's good for everybody, and I think that Uber, well, like you said, they don't love to be regulated, but they also need to know how a system is going to play out, how to make money, how to keep people safe. Like if there's no rules, it's just total mayhem. And I think that it had been for more than a decade over there. So I'm glad to see that there are some regulations in place. And I think everybody, the cities, the people, the companies, is going to be better off because of it.
I'm assuming that they were, and I do remember there were so many stories about it just being crazy over there. But obviously, I think the bigger issue is market share, right? I mean, this is such a big market for them that I think that they were willing to really bend and go, hey, whatever you guys need to do to make this work, we're willing to take the regulations. I don't think that they would have done that if it was here or a certain city. I think they'd be like, nope, we're going to do what we always do. Is that the reason why you think that they were so welcoming to it? Or what was the reason?
Well, I think there's certain regulations that they're like bare minimum. They just make sense. They're not talking about some of these sorts of regulations that would for instance, alter the employment situation of the driver. Here, they're talking about like have relevant licenses and permits, strengthen penalties for the legal carriage of paying passengers. Like that helps the company in a lot of ways. They want safe drivers. They don't want drivers who are not licensed to drive or who have bad driving records. That's a liability for them. They don't want people carrying passengers without being licensed or approved by the rideshare companies. Like the having penalties for the legal carriage of passengers, that's a benefit to the company. That's going to make sure that people aren't using random ride requests that are not associated with Uber and Lyft. That's going to direct people to legitimate rideshare. So I think there was just such a lack of regulation that we're not talking about things that the company has any reason to push away. We're talking about things that make the rideshare experience more legitimate, and that's ultimately good for everyone.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that makes sense then. Yeah, and I do know like there was just so many issues. So yeah, right. It's obviously in their best interest to have it so that the regulations are really these are like you said, this is bare minimum regulations to make sure the business is even functional at all. So that makes sense. Now with this in place though, let's see 6 months from now, a year from now, what happens if they tighten even more and say, well, no, now we need more protections for drivers, or hey, now that we did this, we got to step up, the next level of kind of what we're at here. And then I'm sure they'll push back on that. I can't imagine that they'll be okay. They'll probably be like, "Hey, we gave you an inch. That's all we're giving you." Okay, um,
Correct.
but we'll see. This is very. I mean, this just happened, so
Yeah.
very, very new.
I also don't know that Hong Kong is going to be quite as strict as some of the cities that we deal with in the United States. Like
Right.
I don't think that they're going to be necessarily advocating for drivers' rights in the same way that we see in Minneapolis. Um, it's a different environment. It's a different economy. So I don't know that the government is going to have an interest in regulating further than they already are. We'll see, but I don't. I think that may be another reason why Uber felt comfortable accepting some regulation, because this is the bare minimum that really might be all that the government's interested in.
Yeah. No. That's yeah. It's a very good point. It's very different. It's different scenarios. And again, typically with these stories, we usually see some follow up. So we still might see something in a couple months. I'd be curious to cover it if and when it happens. Moving on to the next story, which we talk about all the time. Is Waymo the future? And one reporter thinks so. And this is from Bloomberg, and they reported, quote, they said, I've covered the car industry for 20 years, and I would hate to see our sports coupes and road trips disappear. The risks associated with, removing control of my mobility also give me pause. Or they did. I took a Waymo for the first time recently in LA, and dot dot dot. I haven't stopped using it since. Rather than replace our cool cars, self-driving vehicles will, I predict, become a welcome complement to modern life, first as a part of ride-sharing platforms, and then as privately owned transportation. Why? Because they offer an excellent solution for something nobody likes: commuting. They say if driving is heaven, commuting is hell. Not even the hardest core drivers like it. So the question isn't whether self-driving will replace our favorite cars, but rather will it remove the burden of our most mundane trips? And could it replace other ride-sharing platforms like Uber? I certainly hope so. So Brian, she goes into a lot more detail and talks as well that they're a long way off from being a bit ubiquitous. But I wanted to cover this because this is less of a technical standpoint or a white paper or a study. This is someone who's a car aficionado who would just tried Waymo and said, okay, I'm a believer now. So this is less, this is more qualitative, less quantitative of the usual stuff where we cover, 1,500 rides or 10,000 people. This is one person saying, I love driving, I love cars, but I am sold on Waymo. So it's an
Yeah,
interesting take.
it is an interesting take, and it's an interesting perspective on this. We talk about the technical side of it all the time, and as it relates to who's going to use it, who wants to use it, we keep hearing that people who try the self-driving cars are blown away. They like the experience, they like the privacy. Uh, it's something that is taking off in various cities. Younger riders are using them more often. So yes, I do think it's the future, and I think that this writer's take is quite interesting in terms of it being a complement to our transportation rather than necessarily taking it over. I can imagine a scenario where I'm getting in a driverless car going to and from work, where my commute down to the office can take anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, just depending on the level of traffic. And I don't really know until I check my GPS in the morning which one it's going to be. If it's a long commute and I can use that time sitting in the back of a self-driving car and just, be making client phone calls or typing a brief or whatever it may be, that's a really valuable use of time, where otherwise I would be sitting in traffic flipping through podcasts. And while sometimes it's nice to just kind of quote unquote relax in that way, it's not efficient. And I think self-driving vehicles may provide a level of efficiency during that mundane travel period. Now, if I'm taking a road trip with my family, the driving is a part of that. If we're driving several states away, I don't know that I'm going to want to sit in a self-driving car. I think that the experience of being behind the wheel and the camaraderie of being with the family in that way, that may be a time where traditional driving is worthwhile and never loses, gets out of style. So I think that there were a lot of interesting points in this article about, one, yes, it probably is taking over a lot of transportation, but maybe not for everything. Maybe it's the worst parts of driving rather than the best.
Yeah, this is a this is a hot take here, but the way that she's positioning this, and I can see it, and I agree with you, is sort of the way boats are. Now, hear me out on this.
Yeah,
So,
I interested.
right, so, and I know, my friends have boats, and most of them are in Maryland, and this is what made me think of this when I read this article, is that in theory, a boat is a form of transportation. Especially in Maryland, like in Baltimore, you could go places, like you can go travel. That is not what it is for. So they take the car to go to the boat, and the boat is now this luxury transportation. It's not focused on transportation; it's focused on the experience. So it almost reminds me of, you take the Waymos or the self-driving cars, like you said, to go to work, to do the mundane, but then households would have a car almost as a specialty item, where it's a higher end car. It has these luxuries, and it's, like you said, it's the experience of driving and doing something you want to do. Um, I can see, if she's saying it like that, I can totally see it. Where now you're not buying a $50,000 or $60,000 car just to get you to work. You're buying a $60,000 luxury car, or some sort of unique experience car. That's like everyone likes being in it, and you go these road trips, or like you go to the beach, or whatever you do. Um, and I mean, honestly, I mean, like you said, who wouldn't love to just be able to do something else besides drive? Like, you're not even driving in rush hour. Everyone knows this. You're hitting, you're letting go of the brake every minute. That's all it is, and it's horrible, and it is hell. And if you can not even have to worry about that, I mean, that would be incredible, especially for
Yeah,
people who have. Most people have like 60-minute commutes.
right.
And so to not have to think about driving because again, it's not even, you just have to like look at the road and keep staring at the bumper in front of you. To remove that entirely, I think would be pretty phenomenal.
It would be. And I have to commend you. You made the boat analogy. It
I
worked.
did make the boat analogy.
Yeah,
You
it
know, I,
worked.
that's that's just how I thought. I was like, yeah, it's kind of reminds me of boats. So
All
that's
right. Well, mission accomplished.
mission
I
accomplished.
you started that, driving that analogy forward. I was concerned. But you
But it
did it.
worked.
Yeah, you
I'd
did.
love to hear other people's thoughts on that if they think it made sense. I think it makes sense, and I really do like. It's like you take one vehicle to get to the other vehicle, right? I mean, that's how I see this being, and just like you said, so very cool. Everyone should read it. It's a pretty interesting article, just what she goes into, and does explain. No, it's not the cure all, but it's a good article, and I think it's worth a read for sure. And our final story this week is a good one, or an interesting one, I should say. Uber is offering new ways for drivers to make money. And this is from, again, Bloomberg. And they reported, quote, a new job category called digital tasks will appear in the Uber driver app for some workers later this fall, offering existing registered drivers the opportunity to make a few bucks if they take on simple assignments that can be completed within minutes. Those stints currently include uploading documents like restaurant menus, recording audio samples of themselves narrating a scenario in various languages. More tasks will be added over time, and the payout will vary based on time commitment of each assignment. Uber is seeking to ride the wave of growing appetite for bespoke data sets and labeling services that require human vetting to train AI models. Scale AI, which offers similar services, received more than 14 billion in investment from Meta Platforms earlier this year, and is valued at more than 29 billion. So this is actually very interesting, Bryant. In a lot of ways, there's a huge technical side to this, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on the driver side and what you think about this digital tasks.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think that anything that Uber can do to provide more earning opportunity for its drivers is a good thing. There's times in which drivers, it might be slow. They might be sitting in a staging lot at a airport. There could be times when they're off the platform because they've exceeded their hours for a day, and there's just opportunities to make additional money while being parked. And I think every driver is looking for chances to pad their pockets a little bit, especially when it's extremely convenient. It sounds like you could do this from home if you wanted. So I think it's a great idea. I hope that they pay enough that it is worth drivers' time. But it's a great idea to have other opportunities to earn income. And one thought that I had just immediately is this is, again, something that differentiates Uber's business from Lyft's. It's so creative in finding ways to make money, finding ways to have different opportunities, whether it's food delivery, courier services, traditional rideshare, now these little tasks that they're posting. Lyft is so laser focused on rideshare and has been for so long that the business just hasn't been able to grow in the same way. So, I know this isn't what this story is about, but I just see this as Uber's innovative ethos. I see it as Uber's ability to diversify its portfolio. And it's just another example of why the company continues to own so much of the market share and really dominate the space.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good point. And as much as at least I personally call bullshit on Uber saying that they're a technology company, this is those times that they are proving that they are. That this isn't just transportation. They are very ready and for any sort of pivot into the future of what technology is, and attaching it like Lego pieces onto their platform. And in so some ways, their argument of, hey, we're a technology company rings a lot truer today than it did a couple years ago when they were kind of saying that to skirt things. But this is specific. This is one of those times. And actually, what's really fascinating about this is, and they have the money to do the research and R&D on this. These sort of digital tasks are going to become a serious job in the very near future. And the reason why is, if anyone's following AI very seriously, as I am, there's something happening right now that they're not really talking about. But basically, AI has gobbled up all of the data. It has it all. The problem with that is it does, it's not like humans where AI can evolve and then figure out and train on other data. AI can't train on AI because then it becomes slop, and it's like painting it's like recording over a VHS tape a million times. So what's happening is they're running into a wall where they need to give it new information. And the only way that AI can get new information that it needs to learn is through humans. And so these digital tasks, I think, are going to become a much larger play in the future, because these AI models need humans to make it digestible for the AI to learn and continue to grow. So this is, again, I think Uber is in front of this. They know this because they're using these huge models, and I'm sure these people are telling them we're going to hit a wall on these things. So get ready to see a lot more of these digital tasks, just in general. I think outside of Uber, I think we'll start to see companies that just sort of focus on, hey, we need a human to translate this, or hey, we need a human to read like what this letter needs to sound like, because AI can't do that. Only humans
Right.
can do that. So very interesting stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is. We'll see how it progresses, but I like the idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, just lastly too, just like you said, this is where Lyft is just really missing the mark. They need to do something. I know their focus was to double down on driving and riders, but they're just not doing enough. If they want to do that, they need to really win drivers. And they had one chance to do that recently with the tipping, and they yanked it out. And so, like, there is a chance that, look, Lyft, if you want to double down on being pro driver, pro transparency, you can't do things like say, hey, we're going to show you tips so you make more, and then go, just kidding, we're not doing that.
Right.
They can't. It's not going to work. They're not going to win.
Yeah, I agree. They don't really put their money where their mouth is. They talk about driver focus, and then, it's just not where they land.
Right. Exactly. Well, that being said, that is the stories this week. And Brian, as always, I will give you the final say until we head into the weekend.
Yeah, we always remind everybody that Legal Rideshare is available for free consultations. Our lawyers can help you collect everything from medical bills, pain and suffering, lost wages, any other damage that you sustain. Please reach out to us after a crash. These claims do not get better with time, and we want to work immediately to set a solid foundation and maximize the recovery that you deserve. So visit us at legalrideshare.com. It has all of our contact information, and we would be happy to assist.
Thank you, Brian. And as I like to say, that is the end of this week in Rideshare. See you next week.